Kelsey wants to leave. She is gone. Absolutely 100%.
This is crazy, man.
Indiana Fever don't want Kelsey Mitchell back.
A seismic shift just rocked the Indiana Fever, potentially altering the entire WNBA landscape forever. Caitlin Clark delivered a live television statement that seemed simple but carried a heavy, hidden weight. It felt less like an interview answer and more like a direct ultimatum for the Fever's executives. Clark essentially issued a public mandate to the front office, positioning herself as the organization's voice. During her recent press appearance, a routine question about the team's future took an unexpected turn. She bypassed the usual fluff, refusing to dodge the inquiry or give a safe, scripted response. Instead of offering vague promises about the future, she laid out her demands with surgical precision. Securing Kelsey Mitchell's return was identified as her absolute top priority for the coming year. She insisted that the franchise must bring Mitchell back into the fold at any cost. This massive endorsement from the league's premier star puts immense pressure on those making the decisions. Mitchell's contract became her singular focus, a point she emphasized repeatedly during the discussion. Labeling Mitchell her vital partner, she explained how the veteran makes every play feel significantly smoother. The message was clear. If the team wants Clark to succeed, they must keep Mitchell beside her. Seeing this duo dominate is what the world wants, rather than watching Clark's potential be restricted. Average stats like 16-12 or 17-10 are unacceptable. They must keep Clark satisfied. While teammates usually support one another, this specific declaration felt far more intentional and pointed. Given the timing and the internal dynamics, this was much more than a standard public relations soundbite. She stepped outside the usual boundaries of a player, making a bold claim that demanded attention. Currently, the Indiana Fever find themselves in one of the most tangled situations in professional hoops. Over 100 players are testing free agency as a new salary system approaches in 2026. With the upcoming CBA, teams will manage $7 million budgets, leaving little room for error. The massive looming question is whether Mitchell will secure a supermax of $1.4 million. While NBA superstars set themselves up for life in one season, WNBA financials tell a different story. $1.4 million is modest compared to the NBA, yet the roster remains a total mystery. The front office is barely certain who will stay or go as the team's identity remains fluid. With Clark earning $530,000 and Mitchell eyeing over $1 million, the math is tough. Managing Sophie's $600,000 and Aaliyah Boston's cool $1 million creates a complex financial puzzle. In the eye of this fiscal storm, Clark declared that Mitchell's retention is the non-negotiable first move. She wants to run it back with the backcourt ally who simplifies the game for her. This went beyond a simple compliment. It was a high-stakes power play aimed at her bosses. When the biggest name in the sport speaks so openly, the front office cannot afford to ignore her. To ignore this request would be to ignore the very foundation they are trying to build around. The situation intensified when Steve Brown's post was aggressively reshared by Kelsey Mitchell. The post took aim at Clark's dedicated supporters, claiming everyone knows who truly leads the Fever. It argued that the offense should revolve around others, regardless of the fan sentiment surrounding Clark. The assertion was that Mitchell and Boston can win alone, but Clark is powerless without them. This commentary from Kelsey Mitchell adds a layer of dread. What happens if Mitchell isn't re-signed? Such a failure would poison the locker room culture and potentially alienate their generational cornerstone. Management can either pay $1.4 million for one star or split it for two contributors. Letting Mitchell walk offers a tempting financial shortcut, which is why this choice is so pivotal. Clark didn't just give an interview. She sent a clear signal to the people running the show. However, a controversial reality exists that makes this entire scenario much more volatile than it seems. Not every fan wants to see Mitchell back, leaving the community split right down the middle. One faction demands the duo remain together, pointing to their near-miraculous run toward the championship finals. When Clark and Mitchell found their rhythm after the All-Star break, the team became a terrifying offensive force. The momentum felt invincible until the shadows emerged, revealing a far more unsettling reality lurking beneath. A growing faction of observers suspects this partnership is a facade, sensing a deep-rooted disconnect. The gears aren't grinding together, fueled by the fact that Mitchell consistently freezes Caitlin out on the court. Even when Clark is perfectly positioned with her feet planted to score, the rock never finds its way to her. This goes beyond Kelsey's personal feelings or the venom her twin sister spewed across social media recently. The glaring question remains, how can a primary guard have 0 assists to a shooter like Caitlin Clark? Talent isn't the problem here. Mitchell remains a lethal weapon, and a top-tier bucket getter in professional basketball. Despite her established stardom, the friction in their coexistence is sparking a massive firestorm of controversy. Keen eyes are beginning to spot troubling behaviors that emerge only when one ignores the surface level. These subtle, game-altering nuances stay hidden from the stat sheet, but rewrite the entire narrative once noticed. Time after time, Clark is left stranded and pleading for the leather, only to be met with total silence. Playmaking dies in favor of isolation ball, causing the team's natural fluidity to evaporate into thin air. Perhaps it is merely a trivial phase or two legends clashing as they attempt to sync their rhythms. Alternatively, a darker truth might be brewing, leading to a mystery that currently defies any easy explanation. If the chemistry is truly toxic, one has to wonder why the supporters are so polarized regarding the future. What drives Clark to champion Mitchell's return so fiercely? Is it pure loyalty or a cold calculation? Is there a hidden agenda behind closed doors? Or is a completely different factor pulling the strings? Piece the puzzle together and look beyond the PR spin, and the entire situation turns incredibly messy. Re-signing her is just the tip of the iceberg as Caitlyn reflected on the upcoming season for the Fever. After chasing a ring last season, the squad is locked in on finishing the job this time around. The landscape is chaotic with over 100 athletes hitting free agency, making roster stability a total gamble. Only 3 or 5 faces are guaranteed to return, leaving the rest of the lineup shrouded in mystery. Securing Kelsey Mitchell on a new deal stands as the organization's primary objective for the offseason. As an All-Pro selection last year, she served as the essential partner in the backcourt rotation. She simplifies the game for everyone, making the Fever the clear choice to dominate the league soon. The heightened expectations are a thrill, backed by a powerhouse roster and a tactical mastermind on the sidelines. Now, the focus shifts to breaking down the layers of a narrative that the mainstream media refuses to touch. The friction and the invisible power struggle between these two icons could completely flip the script. Once the blinders are off, the truth becomes undeniable. It is time to expose what everyone is too afraid to mention. A storm has been brewing in the shadows all year, masked by flashy plays and impressive box scores. What commanded respect was how Clark never allowed her fame to eclipse the sanctity of the team program. She resisted the urge to seize total control, maintaining a balance that is difficult to put into words. The message is clear. She understands her place within the group without needing to state it explicitly. She possesses a profound self-awareness, entering the gym purely to execute her duties as a high-level pro. Her focus remains entirely on integration, ensuring the collective bond and on-court synergy remain unbreakable. There was never a moment where her ego threatened to tower over her teammates or the mission. Within the private confines of the locker room, she treated everyone as equals without seeking special status. Her unselfish approach was designed to perfectly mesh with both Mitchell and the presence of Aaliyah Boston. Scrutinizing the full game tape, not just the highlights, unveils a very bizarre and repetitive trend. One sees Clark standing wide open, arms ready, waiting for a delivery that seems almost guaranteed. She signals for the rock repeatedly, yet time and again, the pass simply never leaves the other hand. Instead, the motion grinds to a halt as the ball handler opts for a contested, solo effort. While every elite scorer takes difficult shots, Mitchell's tendency to go rogue creates a palpable tension. The contrast is jarring because Clark is doing everything in her power to facilitate the team's success. She keeps the ball moving, generating high-quality looks and prioritizing the playmaking role above all else. She discovered a groove by feeding Kelsey, but that generosity sparked a glaring tactical imbalance. One athlete is relentlessly creating for the other without receiving that same competitive fire in return, and the rabbit hole goes deeper. This transcends simple missed connections. It is a battle for the very pulse and governance of the offensive flow. Whenever the ball stays in Caitlyn's hands, the entire game feels electric, synchronized, and utterly lethal. However, the moment that ball stops moving, the collective tempo of the team begins to fracture and stall. Fans have moved past casual observation into an obsession, dissecting every frame and screaming the same realization over and over. This leads to the ultimate riddle. Why would Caitlyn Clark fight so desperately to keep Kelsey Mitchell in the fold? The Indiana Fever are clearly prepared to make Kelsey Mitchell their absolute top priority this offseason. If cash is the catalyst, they will drop a Supermax offer worth $1.2 or $1.3 million annually. Athletes who choose a sign-and-trade path are immediately disqualified from earning that prestigious Supermax salary tier. Essentially, if the front office decides to trade her, they lose the ability to offer her that mountain of gold. The narrative pivots here because the true explanation might be far more shocking than anyone could have anticipated. The first theory suggests she is playing the role of the shield, fully aware of the blinding media spotlight. She understands that public friction can shatter a locker room, so she chooses the path of total vocal loyalty instead. By championing Kelsey, she presents a fortress of unity, a clear sign of a leader with wisdom beyond her years. That is the hallmark of a true icon. Yet there is a much more calculated angle to consider here. Theory number 2 suggests she is playing chess. If Mitchell stays on the floor, who actually benefits from the diverted attention? It is Caitlin Clark herself. Opponents can no longer afford to suffocate her with double teams on every single possession. You cannot fixate on a single threat when 2 elite scorers are hunting at once, regardless of any chemistry friction. Even if the ball movement feels jagged, Kelsey's gravity pulls defenders away, carving out the room Caitlin needs to breathe. It simplifies the game, proving that this isn't a quest for friendship, but a strategic grab for tactical leverage. Then there is the third possibility, a perspective that completely flips the script on the entire organization. What if this entire crusade isn't actually about Kelsey Mitchell, but rather a war against the current system? A quiet fury has been brewing over how this roster is managed, from questionable rotations to stagnant coaching strategies. The real debate centers on the offensive blueprint and whether Clark is actually allowed to pilot the ship as she should. Demanding Kelsey's return might be about something far more profound than just liking her as a teammate. It is about strong-arming the system into a state of flow, reminiscent of that explosive post-Olympic breakout period. When those two were both hunting for blood and the offense was unleashed, the team looked truly unstoppable. We saw 100-point scoreboards and highlight reels that turned every game into a mandatory, high-octane spectacle. She isn't just calling for a player, she is summoning that unstoppable ghost of a team, but the stakes are terrifying. Real-world economics are at play here, with Mitchell eyeing a contract that could hit the Supermax ceiling. If they pay her while Clark and Aaliyah Boston wait for their own massive paydays, the financial room gets crowded. Locking down 3 gargantuan salaries could effectively evaporate the rest of the roster's ability to maintain any depth. They would be left with a top-heavy squad and zero support, a high-stakes gamble on a very thin line. It is a desperate all-in championship or bust move, even though Caitlin is tethered to this franchise for the next 6 years. Looking specifically at the current season, she will pull in $530,000 as an elite performer, but the true max salary awaits her next year. Re-sign Kelsey, take one more desperate swing at glory, and just pray they can handle the fallout afterward. This specific moment is monumental because of the sheer weight and intent behind her public words. When she demanded the front office bring Mitchell back, she was essentially seizing the wheel of the entire franchise. She just drew a line in the sand. Ignoring her now would be a direct act of defiance against their crown jewel. However, if the organization yields to her demands and brings the veteran scorer back into the fold, then every variable, the internal friction, the crushing expectations, and the financial tightrope must align perfectly. If it fails, the whole house of cards detonates, proving this has evolved far beyond the simple game of basketball. This is a raw display of power and the very first trial of Caitlin Clark's true political weight within the league. Every eye remained glued, awaiting the inevitable devastation that lay ahead.